Hey, ministry leader, are you secretly jealous of that large church down the road that seemingly has all the staff, money, and resources they need to make church happen? Well, this week we're going to look at how you can be more professional in a smaller church environment with a smaller budget, smaller resources, smaller staff when it comes to your visual media. Let's do it. Hey friends, welcome to the podcast. Have you driven by that church down the road and you noticed their killer designs and video content and thought, man, I wish we had the staff to pull that off? Well, guess what? You do. You can use ready-made media produced by professional designers, video producers, and motion graphics artists for an incredibly low price. Today, we're going to talk about how smaller churches or churches with limited budget, limited resources, limited staff have used ready-made media to help them look absolutely amazing, super professional, bringing their game up in the area of digital media without breaking the bank. On this podcast, we're not talking to a lot of big-name people. We wanted to do something a little different with this podcast and really get in the trenches with ministry leaders who want to visually communicate the gospel. So how do you search for ready-made media? How do you search for series media, series graphics, collections, all of that to enhance your environments with visuals? How do you download them? How do you import them into your presentation app? All that and more coming up on today's episode. Are you looking for reliable printing for your visuals? Well, check out our friends at outreach.com. As a preferred printing partner for over 20,000 churches worldwide, they have everything you need. From postcards to banners to mailers, Outreach is here to help you reach more with custom printing. Your visuals matter because your message matters. Make your message stand out with outreach.com. Hey guys, I have another great guest on the show today, Cameron Jeffs from Impact Church from Kingston, Ontario, Canada. Hey? Cameron has used our visual media for years and has been so gracious to send in testimonies to us like this one. Check this out. Church Visuals has been an amazing find for us. Their series media collections have made us look like a MegaChurch on a dollar store budget. As a small church pastor, their team makes us feel like we matter. The quality of church graphically is off the charts thanks to you guys. Well, I'm so grateful to Cameron for those kind words. And today I welcome him to the podcast to talk about this very topic of how to have a big impact if you're at a church with limited resources. Here's Cameron. Mr. Cameron Jeffs from Canada, eh?
Yeah,
how are you, man?
Exactly. I'm doing awesome. So excited to be with you, Carl, and get to share a little bit about what God's been doing up here and how he's using our partnership to do that. So it's been great.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. And how are things at Impact Church? I've known you for several years now. How'd you find us? Give us kind of an origin story of how you found us and then what God's doing there at Impact Church with you guys.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, like we actually combination of stumbled across you guys through a conference. I made a connection with a guy who was running a workshop at a church planners conference a number of years ago, and who had mentioned you. And my wife and I have always been kind of drawn to the graphic side of things and doing things well and doing things in excellence. So when we actually kind of came across you and started checking out your website, it was a big win for us because we felt like we found something that really connected. Just a little bit of background on us, because I know that's part of the journey, but for us, Impact Church has just celebrated their 15th anniversary. So we were actually a church plant originally 15 years ago, and are in an amazing city here in Canada called Kingston, Ontario, which is a city of about 140,000 people. It's a university town. It's a white collar town. And so there's a lot of draw in our city for things done in excellence. So it's not just the fact that we desired that, or that that's something that we want to do, but it was actually something as well that, it's a draw here. Kingstonians want things done well. And so we're just blessed to have that partnership.
So I think one thing that we're trying to tackle with this new podcast is how to define that, which it's kind of subjective. You might think something's good. I might think something's not good, especially when it comes to graphics or video. We all have different styles and tastes, but
Yeah.
there is kind of a standard that I'm trying to pinpoint and put our finger on. So maybe let me have you just describe that or define that. When you say we're after excellence, what do you mean by that?
Great question. I think the first thing that stands out to me, when you're thinking about messaging and what you're trying to communicate, communication has to be clear. It has to be understood. It has to connect to, not just visually, but it has to connect emotionally. It has to connect on a deeper level, on a more personal level. What we have found historically with dealing with you guys is that it's not just about the excellence in the content, but it's also in the verbiage. It's in the wording. It's in the languaging, the narrative. It's in how things are presented and what it's really after. In other words, if you could, limit one of your sermon series, like for example, one of the biggest wins for us was Collide. We actually did it in the middle of COVID, and it was such a massive win for our church. And it wasn't so much that the graphics were just amazing. It was the message or the narrative that we were trying to communicate in that series called Collide. And again, for many of us, to me, it's about the combination. Excellence to me is about the combination of the visual connection, but the heart connection. And the heart connection takes place on a much more broader scale. And so for us, excellence is those two things. It's never just one. There's too many churches that get stuck in looking good, but they don't have a message to connect to it. So you can look good all day long, and you can bring in people with all these different marketing opportunities or strategies that you create as a team. But if you're not connecting it to a core narrative or a core message that ultimately hits the gospel to people's hearts, then I don't think it's wrong. I just think we're missing the mark. And so for me, excellence is twofold. It's heart and it's quality.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned both of those things, because that hits at the heart of our team. When we are bringing on new team members, new graphic designers, new video producers, especially, we could outsource it to another country just to find a great motion designer.
Right.
We choose not to.
Right.
Not that we can't find believers in other countries. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're after believers. We're after ministry folks that have a heart for the church, and that are after creating content to help you as a ministry leader share the gospel.
Amen.
And so if I'm not a believer myself and I don't love Jesus and I'm not following after him, my language is not going to show that or tell that. And I think that comes out, hopefully, that's what we pray for, is with our ready-made media, it comes out in the script of a mini movie or the scripting of, sermon bumpers and graphics and different, subtitles and different things like that, where, and I want your opinion on that it is more, just like you said, it's more than just looking awesome just to look awesome for awesome sake. Great. And I've served in mega churches where we've looked amazing, but creating the experience just to be awesome, just to look great, is not changing lives, is not the life-changing experience of Jesus Christ, the gospel, the Holy Spirit. It's not, it's not necessarily those things. So, but I do think that there is a correlation between how we present the gospel and how people receive the gospel. If it's, presented in a very poor fashion, I think that people are less receptive of it. Kind of walk that out for me. Do you agree with where I'm going there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I heard this statement years ago at a conference, and it's always struck me. They basically said, the unchurched, the de-churched, or the first-time people that are connecting to faith make up their mind on your church in the first 30 seconds. And the problem with the first 30 seconds is, yes, that has to do with guest services. But if you only think it's a smile on someone's face and it's not signage, for example, as to where to go or how to get there, if it's not, the materials that they're seeing when they walk into the service, if it's not the countdown video or some of the graphics that are up on the screen, all of those elements are telling a story or creating a narrative for those people that are coming for the first time. And I personally think maybe I'm overthinking this, but I've always been of the opinion, I think Jesus deserves our best. And I think the way that we come across to our audience, to those that are coming, especially those that are coming for maybe the first time, or maybe left church 20 years ago and have been frustrated by their church experience or whatever, and they're coming back for the first time, I think it gives us an opportunity to really draw them into a much broader narrative, which is the gospel. So one of the things that we do, yes, we utilize all the ready-made material. Yes, we use the sermons in a box. We use a number of things, and we'll talk obviously more about that as we go through this opportunity to connect. But we always are connecting it to a much broader thought, to a much bigger thought. So, for example, when we're doing, the series Fresh Off the Vine, which we did on the fruit of the Spirit, I mean, we're connecting that narrative now to testimonies, to connections online through Instagram or through Twitter or obviously now called X, through those different connection points. Maybe it's a hashtag, but there's some sort of draw in to a much bigger narrative that is so important. And again, I think this is the dynamic where people have to make the adjustment from the heart of saying, I just want to look good, to I want this message to hit home. I want there to be a big idea that connects to people's hearts, that don't just become a Sunday morning experience, but actually becomes a heart transformation. It's something that's gripping their heart. And I think that is what is so essential about partnering all of these different, maybe on-ramps, connection points to the gospel. And the look or the graphics or the countdown or the sermon bumpers are part and parcel of it. It's not the whole thing, but it's an avenue to make people understand, here's the on-ramp to the highway called the gospel.
Yeah.
Here's how you get there. And it's like creating as much signage as we possibly can to help them get there.
Good. I want to get into some details of how you guys use ready-made media at Impact. But before I forget, you're the lead pastor at
That's
Impact
correct.
Church. Why have you chosen to budget? Why is it important to spend the money on visual media, just like you would spend the money on something else at your church?
Well, again, the first thing is, I think at the core, my wife and I's heart has always been to do things well. So we're musicians, not that everyone's going to relate to that, but one of the things that we've learned about being musicians is if you have really bad quality sound equipment, you can have the most talented musicians on stage. It doesn't sound good, and it can be a distraction. So we've kind of said from day one, we want to make sure that we are creating an experience for people that will actually open their heart and in a doorway in their mind to a further conversation about the gospel and about Jesus Christ. Now, when it comes to the content, video content, I think the one thing that we have come back to is you have to predetermine whether you're a small church like us, a medium-sized church, or a large mega church. You have to determine, what ultimately is your, what is the narrative you're creating? And if I can use a different word, what's the culture you're choosing to create in your church? What's your church culture look like? What do you want to be known as or seen as? And the one thing that's unique about Kingston, so just to give a little bit of background on Kingston, because it'll actually help to answer this question. Kingston is 140,000 city. It is a university town. To compare it to the United States, we actually have what would be considered a Canadian Ivy League type school here, Queen's University. It's the biggest employer here in the city. It hires and literally has staff of thousands here. And one of the things that is also a dynamic we learned about when we first moved here 15 years ago was that Kingston has the highest percentage of post-secondary graduates per capita in all of Canada. So it's a very highly intellectual city, and it has business people and professors and doctors and lawyers, like really well-to-do people here, and they demand a certain quality. I mean, I think we do that just to please a group of people? No. But there is a certain expectation that we are to do things well. All right. So to transition this into the idea of, the visuals and the budget, one of the things that we prayed for many years ago is, Lord, help us, lead us to an organization that not only does things well, has a heart for the local church, has a heart for pastors who are not mega churches, that don't have staffs of 85, 100, 150 people, that have small staffs. And for us, we started out very small. We've never been below 100, but our peak as far as church attendance, we're about 200, 150 to 200 people on average weekly, just to give context to your audience. And we recognized we're not bringing in $2.5 million a year. We're not bringing in $5 million a year. Our budget historically has kind of been anywhere from 250,000 Canadian upwards of about 400,000 Canadian. That's the context. It's important for your kind of audience to know that's the context. We made up our minds. We're going to find someone who believes in the local church, who does things well, but who also gives us options for packages that are within a budget. So our phrase that we've often talked about between you and I is that we are a small church that has a bigger church feel because of the quality of content that we're able to draw from church visuals, which is awesome. So we utilize a number of things to do that. We've utilized the sermon in a box. We've utilized sermon bumpers, mini movies, countdowns. We've utilized your service packs, especially for holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving, whether it's Christmas, Easter, you name it. We've utilized a number of the still shots for social media. We've used, we actually just had one of our biggest events of the year. We're a multicultural church. We have about 35 countries in our city, or in our church, and we love it. So we did this big event called Taste of the World, which is a gigantic potluck dinner. And we ended up using all of your content for the to the ends of the earth, which is normally a sermon series package, but we actually picked it apart and used it for, our weekend with our Taste of the World event, and used the motion graphics background for our lyrics and worship time. And we just kind of used it in our social media content. It was awesome. So we were able to just utilize that and connect it to it. The other thing that we came across, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. It could even have been during COVID. I can't remember now the timeline, but you actually you've done the Go Unlimited package for a while, which is awesome. But you had a season where you actually offered a lifetime subscription. Yep. And we were in a situation where we had been doing kind of month to month, Go Unlimited month to month, and it was very reasonably priced. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I think it was $59 a month, but it was very reasonably priced for a church our size. And then the lifetime subscription came up that, again, we thought was a reasonable price. We jumped on it. And so I'm not here to necessarily tell your audience what you should or shouldn't do, but the Go Unlimited way, if you can get to a lifetime subscription and take advantage of it that way, that is probably the best bang for your buck you're going to find through church visuals, is this Go Unlimited package. That's a lifetime subscription. I don't know if you guys do that anymore, if it's still just a monthly thing, but it was an amazing win for us. And so it's led us to use all kinds of material from your site, which has been awesome, including in our kids ministry, our youth program, our outreaches, our special events, even some of the stuff we've used for small groups. We use it in so many different ways. And the constant feedback we get at Impact Church is, wow, where do you get your stuff from? Or who does this? Who designs it? Do you have somebody on staff? And we're like, well, we do a couple of things creatively ourselves, but without hesitation, it's always like, well, we've got this great connection with Church Visuals, and they have been an amazing partner for us.
Man, thank you for that. Speaking of your staff, give me a sense of what your creative staff looks like on this idea of a small church that looks larger than it is. Yeah. And not that we're trying to fool anybody with that, but it does allow you to, using ready-made media from us or anyone, allows you to have those creative elements from professional designers and video creators without necessarily having them on your full-time staff.
Yeah.
So give me a sense of what your creative staff team looks like.
Yeah. So again, just overall, our staff, we are currently 1 full-time staff and 5 part-time staff. And so those part-time staff can be anything from a youth pastor, youth director, kids director, outreach kind of person. But our main creative team is actually primarily 1 staff person. Yes, she bounces things off of different people, but she's actually an arts major that went to Queen's University. She's actually from the US. She's from Connecticut. And she came to Canada, came to Queens, loved the church, fell in love with the city, stayed, and we hired her. And she's our community specialist, our communications director. She's on staff 4 days a week. Her main role is event planning and communications and volunteer follow-up. So she's not just actually focused on communications, where there's different churches, even in our size, that may try to get a part-time communications director where that's their focal point. She actually has her hands on a lot of things. So I just want to give context. Like, we don't have a dedicated staff person that only handles communication. She probably does that about 1 to 2 days a week. But she's the one that is primarily responsible for the utilization of the products that you have on your website. I would say the pastoral team, with me taking the lead on that, is more behind some of the creativity as to how we utilize the sermon series or how we utilize maybe themes for different events. I'm fairly creative naturally, so I actually am very drawn to that. Not every pastor or lead pastor is going to be creative. My skill set is I am more creative. I'm more musical creative. I love graphic design. I've actually done some of that stuff myself, so that probably helps in some ways. But it's basically the pastoral team coming up with more of the sermon series themes, and then our staff, Sarah, helping to actually put all of those details together, which is something we kind of map out month to month. Sometimes we do planning meetings.
I was going to ask you how far out you are.
So the actual planning meetings for more sermon series plans or even events, it's usually done 4 to 6 months out. Sometimes it's 2 to 3 months out. But what we typically do is every month we connect and kind of usually 2 weeks before the end of a month to kind of map out that next month. And then every single week in our staff meetings, we have a segment designed to just highlighting what are we doing with announcements, what are we doing with sermon series, what do the graphics look like, and how does that play out? So it is an ongoing conversation, but the planning is a twofold planning. It is a more bigger visionary planning that takes place about 3 to 5 months out, and then the more strategic, detailed planning of what that's going to look like, basically 2 to 3 weeks out from the upcoming month and what that looks like.
So you have that plan in place 4 to 6 weeks out. Is it her job to go on our site or create that content, or go to other places and pull that content in and then get approval from you? Hey, pastor, here's what I'm thinking. Or what does that kind of process look like?
So she's actually a part of some of the discussions that are 3, 4, 5 months out. So she's already got kind of an idea of where we're going in each section of the church. What we've done as a church, not everyone has to do this, but we actually divide our church calendar year into 3 4-month segments. So we think September to December, January to April, May till August. That's how we think out everything. And so she is designing everything in that 4-month period for events, for sermon series, for social media campaigns. So, we did a whole month in our social media campaign in 1 month. I think it was a couple of Aprils ago, where it was all basically on a hashtag upon thankfulness. And what are you thankful for today? And she created this whole line and actually utilized one of your service packs for Thanksgiving in April, not with necessarily a leaf theme or a harvest theme, but more of a thankfulness theme. And it worked great. But yeah, she would be a part of that journey. And then she just starts to kind of unpack Instagram stories, Instagram reels, Instagram posts, X posts, Facebook posts, and she starts the journey towards setting us up for using, for example, the 2-week out trailer, the 1-week out trailer, as we're getting ready for the sermon series to start that week after. And so there is a pattern. She's really developed a really good, healthy pattern as far as how to utilize the messaging around social media sites, the actual countdown or trailer videos that we would utilize, and then basically creates the package for those sermon series every month. So she does a great job at it. And it's a passion of hers too, which is always nice.
So let me get even more granular. How does that get to, if she's creating all that, how does that get to a volunteer on Sunday when you're presenting that on screen? How does that, is she the one scheduling that out for social media, or is there anybody else involved on a volunteer level?
Yeah, she actually has a team of people that she utilizes that are volunteers. Some of them are really skilled at doing, for example, Reels or Instagram stories, and that seems to be their thing. For some of them, they love to create posts, and we've used Canva as a way to kind of draw things in and kind of customize, maybe is the right way to say it, customize our own languaging or narrative off of some of that. And so that's been helpful. But she has a team, usually about 3 or 4 different people that will be involved mostly in the social media campaign. Some of that can be where we actually create a much bigger campaign around that theme for the whole month. And sometimes it actually is even involved in set design. So she'll even draw into some set design material or opportunities. Sometimes it's creating almost like a space in our main lobby. And again, we're portable. So just to give context to your audience too, we're a portable church. So everything we do is set up and tear down every single week. So everything we do is...
Bless you, brother.
I know. Everything we do is a challenge. Like it's not just like you show up, there's your existing building. You can work on that design Monday to Friday, and then away you go for the weekend. We only are able to rent our space usually Saturday nights and through Sunday night. So most of the stuff she may have to do that's extra, she'll do on Saturday night. But I'll give you a prime example. We ended up utilizing some of the material that you guys have related to water baptism. And we utilized it. She ended up using the theme and created this big display in our lobby where all of the people who got baptized and their families could take a picture under the display. But we actually used it from your original graphics, and it was designed from that. And so, it was, and again, she's an arts major, so we're really super blessed to have her. She's so crazy talented. Not everyone's going to have that, but we were able to utilize, again, this big idea, this big theme or thought or narrative that we actually want to create with these different projects or sermon series or events. And then she can utilize that both in the looks on a Sunday, the social media content that goes out, including videos. And it's worked really, really well.
So I love that you're hitting on that, because I want people to know that with our graphics or with ready-made graphics, wherever you might get them, is to not necessarily, I mean, you can use them straight out of the box the way that we would give them to you with some pre-made things, or we give you the source file, the Photoshop file, so you can take it into a Canva, you can take it into a Photoshop, and tweak it to your context, whether that's changing the text, colors, taking pieces out of it. So maybe dive into a little bit more of that, how you guys, use it as a base.
I would say it's twofold for us. And I only say that to say your content is so excellent and so good and so well thought out that we don't really feel the pressure to customize too much. So I just want to give context. Like there isn't a lot of things that we would customize, other than maybe there's some different things that we would want to have as maybe an introductory graphic on a reel or something like that. But for the most part, what we're getting from your packages is so solid that we don't really need to reinvent the wheel and try to create something. I think where we do get into the realm of customization is when we actually, as a team, have really prayed and sought the Lord and asked God, is there something you want us to hone in on? Is there something we want to focus in on? Is there a phrase, a theme, an idea, a concept? Maybe it's a verse. What is it that you want us to hone in on? And so most of the time that we customize something is because we feel like the Spirit of God is leading us to actually unpack a theme or an idea that's connected to a sermon series that we are going to almost kind of use as a launch pad. So we're using the sermon series, the series in a box, as a launch pad to get our church to actually gravitate towards this one theme, and then we actually customize all of our social media stuff around that. And that could be a variety of different things. Like I'm thinking of the Fresh Off the Vine series on the fruit of the Spirit. And there's so much that we can do to customize even every week, and the theme of every week when we're dealing with, love, joy, peace, patience, and kindness. And you go down the list. The Collide series was so good because it really introduced our church to this theme. And it's going to sound so simple, but this is the theme that we spun off. The idea of Collide landed us on two thoughts. We can choose to follow culture, or we can choose to follow Christ. I come back to this all the time. You can choose to follow culture. You can choose to follow Christ. Which one are you choosing? And so all of the phraseology that we utilized and customized out of that was Christ or culture. Which one are you choosing? Mm-hmm. And so it's a simple thought, but when you actually utilize the content from the videos from the Collide series, that was the gist of what was coming across in the narrative. We just made it personal. We made it fit with our Impact Church family. And that phrase, I have lost count how many times I've heard in the last 3 years. Because people grabbed it. Yes, they've grabbed a hold of it. Yeah,
good. All right, so let's hit on again this idea of a smaller church looking like a larger church.
Sure.
Or maybe giving your staff more legs than you have on your full-time creative staff to begin with. So maybe talk me through how it saves some staff time, and maybe what the community has seen, like, wow, you must have a big staff. You want to kind of talk at that a little bit more?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple of things that jump out for me. First of all, our staff is so crazy excited that they don't have to waste time trying to create something. Like on a very simple level, that's number one. Number two, they're so drawn to the material that's on the Church Visuals website that really connects to our heart. And so for them, it's not just a time saver. It's actually very encouraging. They don't have to recreate the wheel. So they're looking at stuff that's there, and they're literally praying, okay, whether it's a youth director, whether it's our kids director, whether it's our communications director, God, what do you want us to kind of take from that, and how do we draw that out? And so it's a time saver. It's an exciting kind of visionary thing. It actually has stimulated a lot of amazing questions and conversation for us as a team regarding how can we take some of the things that we're currently doing and get them better. So for example, I'm sure most of your audience will know, most of us have these recurring, static slides that you see sliding through in your announcement slides every single week. And it's like, here's the giving kiosk, or are you new here? This is how you fill out the Connect card. Well, what we're doing is we're utilizing your service packs and some of the different packs you have to actually update what we do. And so it's changing. Like if we have a Thanksgiving weekend, we're changing it with the Thanksgiving theme. Everything's on the Thanksgiving background. If it's Christmas, we're changing it to that. If it's a sermon series, we're changing it to that. So there's definitely creativity that comes from that. I'm going to tell you another thing that I think is a major win for our church and for our team. We love outreach. We live it. We breathe it. Impact was not a name that we just came up with, just off the cuff. We really prayed and said, Lord, what name do you want for our church? We kept coming back to Impact because we kept feeling like God's called us to be a city reaching church, that God has called us to have city impact. We believe that from day one. I'm going to tell you the overwhelming, and I mean overwhelming, feedback that we've had from schools, secular schools, public schools, community centers, business organizations. When we come in and we do our events or we do our thing, they look at it and they go, who in the world did all of that? Like, wow. So the reputation that we have in our city is Impact Church not only loves well, they do everything well. Mm-hmm. And that's again, yes, it's the people side. Yes, it's the friendliness. And yes, it's the heart of Jesus and people on display. And yes, it's serving our community. And that's all seen through heart issues. Yes, I 100% agree that is absolutely essential. But there's a dynamic that we present because of the graphics and the material and the videos and the Instagram stuff and all of those things. That's just next level. And then so the feedback we've had I'll be very transparent. We actually personally know our mayor here. We're good friends with him. My daughter's actually babysat his kids, and he keeps coming back. He's actually a believer as well, which is awesome. But he keeps coming back to us and says, you guys stand out in the city as far as the churches are concerned. And that's nothing against any other church. But when I hear that, I go, wow, thank you.
Mm.
He goes, I'm going to tell you why. Everything you do with excellence. Every detail is taken care of. Everything looks exceptional. You guys carry the name of Jesus well. And I was like, thank you. Because the reality is yes, does all of that stuff ultimately lead someone to Christ? Well, I don't know. I mean, there's probably great debate about that, whether that's true or not. But I always say it like this, but it could potentially soften someone's heart to be open to the conversation. Absolutely.
Right.
Does that mean that it's a graphic that makes someone come to Christ? I don't think so. But does it soften their heart? Does it maybe open their mind? Does it maybe create a sense of the Holy Spirit knocking on someone's heart to be even open to that conversation? I think it's a part of the package, right? And so from a staff perspective, they're excited because they see what it can do. They're excited because it's a time saver. They're excited because it actually creates greater vision and ideas and strategies that come out of it. Because we're going on the website and we're looking at different things and going, oh, wow, I never thought of that before. I never thought about the idea of like forward living. It's one of your older packages, but we jumped on that thing. And it's like, how many people right now are looking at the past and looking at their struggles and looking at this, but it actually stimulated vision for our team. So it was beyond just content you can grab. It actually stimulated greater vision for us and how we can utilize it to actually use it as an outreach tool.
Man, I want to land on that idea that, I mean, can a graphic save someone? No, it's the Holy Spirit. Can a video save? No, it's the Holy Spirit that does the saving. But are there some success stories or impact stories that you can think of folks who have come in from that outreach and are now incredibly, maybe you've seen life change in them, and maybe they've been more active in your church or been more a part. Maybe talk about some of the
I got a great story.
Stories.
Yeah, I got a great story. So there was some material we grabbed off of you guys. I'm going to say it's going back about 6 or 7 years, definitely pre-COVID, and we ended up creating it and utilizing it as a I forget the name of them, but where you can hang them on the doors. We actually creatively used the graphic, made a campaign out of it, and actually delivered 10,000 of these graphics that we designed from your guys' material that we actually ended up putting out on doors. And our whole church, most churches, because they have a little more money than we do, usually do the mass mailer and pay the money. We don't have that money because we're a smaller church. And so we actually made it this big evangelism campaign where we had 100 people in our church hit their streets. And we ended up handing out somewhere between 10 and 12,000 mailers to people's doors. And so we had one couple that was in the middle of a really, struggle in their relationship. They just had a new little daughter. There was a lot of issues going on. They have very little to no background of faith. They were so frustrated, so disheartened. The wife was at the point of like deep depression, wanted to give up on their marriage, wanted to just walk out. The husband dealing with anger and frustration, very angry kind of guy. And it was the phraseology on the mailer, which we grabbed from you guys, that grabbed their hearts. And the wife ended up coming to our church first. And she came as a result of this mailer. She comes to church. She starts crying through the whole service and not knowing what's going on, very little background. At the end of the service, she ended up connecting with somebody, one of our prayer team leaders, and she gave her life to the Lord. And the only reason she was there was because of this mailer. That's what brought her there. And then 2 months later, her husband came. He gave his life to the Lord. Then their daughter's there. Their daughter's growing up in church. He joined the worship team. She got on the prayer team. A couple of years later, they're both small group leaders. Now they're leaders. She came through our Impact Interns program, which is our internship program for kind of an intensive growth and development process. And all of it was because of a mailer that my son actually, interestingly enough, delivered on that street in 1 month of August. I think it was 2018 or 2017. And now their life story is completely different. And what got their attention was the title on the mailer and then the phrase that you guys had as a subtitle. And it spoke to their story. It spoke to exactly where they were. And now we see the fruit of it. They love Jesus with their whole heart. They're serving the Lord, involved in church, serving, leading. It's awesome. And that one story, I probably have 100 others like that, where it's like something got someone's attention. The Collide series, which I've referenced a couple times, that was a game changer for some people that were on their fence with their faith and basically said, I got to stop living in culture. I got to choose Christ. And that phrase has come back to people even in the baptism tank as they're giving testimony of their baptism day. This is what changed my life. I had to make up my mind to choose Christ, not culture. And it's like, well, where did that come from? The Collide series. Well, where did that come from? From you guys. And so it's like you start to put all of these little partnership opportunities together, and you start to see how all of these different gifts in the body of Christ can be used together, like Romans 12 talks about, to actually lead someone to a genuine, authentic faith in the Lord. And so, again, we see it as this holistic partnership with you guys, where while you're not physically here, you are investing in a small little church in Kingston, Ontario called Impact that no one's probably ever heard of before this moment. But for us, it's been life-changing because we're seeing the fruit of what you guys do and how you believe in us and how you partner with us to see the gospel message ultimately come to our community. And so, yeah, I mean, that story, I have probably literally 100 others just like that.
Man, I was going to ask you as a last question why your visuals matter, but that is it, man. I mean, just the fact that your visuals matter because the gospel matters.
Yes.
Your visuals matter because the lives of the people, like you just mentioned, matter. Yeah. And if we can get the intention, I'm answering the question for you. If we can get the attention of people who are far from God, or people that are believers but need to be strengthened in their faith and in their walk and be discipled more. If we can get the attention of those folks with higher quality visuals, then as tools for the gospel to move forward, for them to be discipled, for them to grow in their faith. That's the win.
It is the win.
And it's amazing to partner with guys like you in different countries even, right? Me and you have never met in person, though we've been in ministry together in the trenches for years.
Yes.
And that is that touches me greatly that me and you can partner together. And I want other ministry leaders to know that whether you use us or someone else, you can, if you're a smaller church, Impact is an example that you can be a smaller church that looks like a larger church, that you can have the same impact as any other church anywhere at any size by using pre-done stuff that are affordable to you. I mean, it hasn't broken your bank. You found a way to do it from a budget standpoint that's super affordable to you. And you mentioned the lifetime thing. We've done that occasionally, but even if it's not a lifetime thing, I mean, our subscription is in the $49 a month range.
Which, it's completely reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're trying our hardest to do that, is make it, high quality stuff, but affordable for the local church. And so it's just amazing to hear your story.
Like, so many people have used staff to do that, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about this, if you're hiring somebody part-time, I mean, I'm thinking Canadian funds, but I'm sure it's a little bit different in the US. But if you're hiring somebody part-time, even say 3 days a week, you're probably minimum in the 25 to 40,000 range.
Yeah, at least. Mm-hmm.
You're paying $49 or $59 a month.
Correct. And that 25 to 50 grand, let's say, is one person, is one designer. That doesn't include your video as well, or it doesn't include you're gonna
the motion graphics or the countdowns or all the other stuff. And so when you understand it from that perspective, it's a no-brainer. Like, it's literally no-brainer. The biggest thing for us is we had to find the the strategy as to how to get to a point where we could eventually do the Go Unlimited, which is such a win for us. But for us, we just made up our minds. We can afford that. We're gonna pay some extra money at the beginning that we were probably a little bit tight on as far as the budget overall, but it is so worth the investment because you're creating a culture, you're creating a narrative that is so much bigger than you. And it's helping to draw people who are naturally visually oriented. Our society is visually oriented. They're drawn to that. And so it just helps to really make the gospel shine.
Man, stories from guys like you never get old. This is where it's at, to see life change happen in real communities and real people. So, man, thank you so much for sharing today. I appreciate your heart. I hope people haven't felt like this is an infomercial or anything like that. Like, I want people to know the heart of what we're trying to do here, and also the heart of what you're trying to do where you are as a ministry leader. Is we're in this together. We are in a war. We are in a battle together for the culture, for people's lives, and we're praying that we see life change happen through the gospel. So, man, thank you for all that you're doing at Impact. You are making a difference yourself. Man, thank you for not growing weary and doing good. Really appreciate your work. And, man, thanks for the time today.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Hey, ministry leader, you might be at a church with a tight budget, and you might not have the means to produce custom media at your church. I would love for you to check out our ready-made media library at churchvisuals.com. We have over 30,000 pieces of instant downloadable content ready to use this Sunday. We have 9 product types of media for adults, kids, and student ministries, from mini movies to countdowns, series media, ministry graphics, social media, and more. All of our media is available both a la carte or with our Church Visuals Plus subscription. It's all at churchvisuals.com. That's churchvisuals.com.
Hey, ministry leader, here's your church visuals tip of the week. You can afford high quality visual media at your church. You can. Don't feel like you have to be a huge church with a lot of resources, a lot of staff to make a big impact or visually communicate the gospel well. You can look like the church down the road on a smaller church budget. You can go to churchvisuals.com for a bunch of ready-made media. We have a huge library there that is a la carte, so you can get graphics for as low as $5 there if you need it. We also have subscriptions and discounts and different things available if you are a church with smaller resources, limited resources available to you. We would love to help you out. You can go to churchvisuals.com for all of that in the ready-made media library. And also we have a full training platform for you with podcasts and courses, articles, all of that. Again, that's churchvisuals.com. Well, if you want to reach the people you want to reach for Jesus, your visuals matter. I'll see you next week. Your Visuals Matter has been a podcast presentation of Church Visuals. Executive produced by Carl Barnhill. Edited by A.J. Schubert. Title and show graphics by Angie Lomas. For more resources to help you visually communicate the gospel, visit churchvisuals.com.